プレミア12開幕。プレミア12侍ジャパン全試合をプライムビデオでライブ配信。11月9日侍ジャパン強化試合チェコ。
By how much they are losing Philadelphia by. Simply, it cuts into the margin that Democrats need. And here in Bucks County, they're seeing themselves on the screen right now. It means a lot. If he were to win this county, Bucks County, I mean, that would be the first time a Republican presidential candidate has taken this county since 1988. And these suburbs of Philadelphia, this is what pushed Biden over the edge in 2020. Harris needs to do well in these counties if she stands to have a chance of taking this state, guys. Brett, Martha?
Alex, thank you. So let's go to Bill and see, what are you cooking up over there, Bill?
You know, I was just looking at New York. You know, we heard so much about MSG and the insult comic about the Puerto Rican joke. And, you know, Trump, you know, New York's his home, right? I'm now living in Florida, Mar-a-Lago. But just look at this. I'm going to go ahead and use the slide bar and just, okay, 8 years ago when he's running against Hillary Clinton, this is his margin in New York, all right? 37.5 compared to almost 59 for Hillary Clinton. And then against Joe Biden, it was, what? Was it? Oh my gosh. It was 0.3 of a point, all right? And now we come to 2020 and see the numbers on the board here. That's a pretty decent performance. And we're just getting some insight here in the New York City. He did well over 40% of the vote here in New York as well. One thing I was checking out here, guys, this is the number, right? Path to 270. I guess in theory right now, if you were to close out, you know, you're at 248. If you were to close out Pennsylvania, and even though Alaska has ranked choice voting, which could take a while to post a number here, nonetheless, that would put him right at the number 270. So even around the blue wall, that's possible too. That goes back to the argument that we've been talking about for some time now, that Trump had more paths to the Oval Office than Harris did. Let's go check on Pennsylvania one more time here, and we'll see. Okay, it's holding steady at 3.5. 90% of the estimated vote out there is now reporting here. In Michigan, you know, the blue wall, 6.3, so that number is stuck a little bit here. Estimated somewhere, maybe 40% of the vote still missing there in Michigan and Wisconsin. You know, maybe we get some more numbers in. It got 85% of the vote in here. And, you know, Trump's holding on to this 4.2 advantage in Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, they take a lot of pride in what they do. They want to get the vote out quickly. Maybe Milwaukee notwithstanding, but the rest of the state, you know, that's their idea. So we could get that in maybe a little more as we go into what, the 2 a.m. hour? Are we going to 2 a.m. or 3? What are we doing here? Arizona sticking here at 0.7. What's that?
Just keep going.
Okay, you got it. This is Nevada, so we're starting to get our first numbers in from Nevada. For any of the nerds and geeks out there that have been deep in the weeds about the early voting, you've been watching Nevada. And Nevada's been a pretty good marker there for Republicans. This is a quick count here now. It's saying 75% of the vote is in, and Trump's got a firm lead at 3.4 points, roughly just a tad under 35,000 votes. Clark County, Las Vegas, 70% of the votes in the Silver State here all come from Nevada. Let's see what's happening right now. Okay, Harris, just a tick over 50.2 with 80%. I want to go comparison's sake, 8 years ago, why not, right? In Nevada, I don't know what this number is. We'll find out together, okay? So Hillary Clinton did 2 points better than Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden, okay, did even better, you know, 3.5 over what Kamala Harris is putting up right now. So it appears if you're in the Trump camp, that's a pretty good number right now, just shy of 51% in Nevada early on. Here's Carl Rowe's favorite place in the world. This is Washoe County, right, Carl? Right now, a point, it's close, right? 0.2 points. You know, what happened with Biden? Was it close? Yeah, pretty close, but Biden won the county. So in all likelihood, Trump's got a chance to flip this if it holds up right now. Super slim and more vote to come in, but Nevada is looking good too. And now you start to wonder, you know, how high does this number go on the Electoral College?
Yeah, New York Times needle is now at greater than 95% and likely to win the popular vote is what they have. Well, let's check in. Let's go out to Vegas. Jeff Ball is live in Las Vegas. Jeff, what's happening?
Well, a lot of excitement here and optimism at the Sam Brown watch party. He's, of course, the Republican candidate trying to unseat the Democratic incumbent Senator Jackie Rosen. And just a few moments ago, when Bill was talking about Nevada, you heard a lot of cheers here from the crowd at the Sam Brown watch party, just knowing some of those initial numbers. It took nearly 3 hours to finally get some of those numbers. We're hoping to get another batch in the coming hours, but Nevada has an interesting law where it's, you can vote right up until the 7 o'clock hour, and if you're in line, they'll let you vote, and in order to release those results, they wait until the very last person in line votes. That person, it took 2 hours and 48 minutes, so still a very long night ahead of us, but for the folks here at the Sam Brown watch party, a lot of optimism in the air.
All right, Jeff Ball in Las Vegas. Jeff, thanks.
So our panel is still with us, and we have some new folks that are here as well. Kevin McCarthy is joining us. Karl Rove is back. Juan Williams is here. Great to have all of you with us. Kevin McCarthy, let me start with you. Give us an update on what your overall take on the night so far, and then maybe drill down on some of what you're seeing in these House situations as well.
The Senate Republicans did an extraordinary job. They surpassed all expectations. President Trump is on his way. And I think President Trump is going to help the Republicans hold the House, but it's going to be very narrow, maybe even narrower than we have now.
But you think they could do it?
Maybe even narrower than you have now, you said.
Yeah, it may be exactly the same or maybe smaller. Look at the 2 seats I said at the very beginning of the night. Watch Pennsylvania 7 and Pennsylvania 8. I think we're going to pick those both up. You said North Carolina 1. We're probably going to lose that by 1 point. She did an extraordinary job.
Wow.
Then you look at Maine. We're ahead there. But we have some incumbents that have fallen in New York. California's just in now, but don't read those numbers yet because it's just the first part coming in. We're going to have to wait some time to see where we're there. Arizona, we've got a couple of incumbents in trouble. Bacon's coming back in Omaha, maybe there. If we hold the House, if this is a trifecta, the credit goes to President Trump. But it also fundamentally means something different. You can do reconciliation when it comes to tax reform. So you don't need 60 votes in the Senate. Having the Senate as large as he is, he's going to get the cabinet that he wants. The other thing that's going to happen is you're not going to have a Hakeem Jeffries that's going to try to impeach him every single week. So America's going to see ability to govern. And if Republicans take this moment in time to not play games and focus on the issues, they can grow it the next time. Otherwise, it's going to be very competitive in 2 years.
But Juan Williams, if it's as big as we think it could be, we obviously haven't made these calls yet, but it's trending that way, and the pathway for her to win is getting narrower and narrower. Isn't it not a mandate? And Hakeem Jeffries and the thought of impeaching with what we're seeing tonight seems like wouldn't be the right move.
Well, I think the Democrats are, well, dispirited at this moment, and I think that the likelihood, as we've pointed out, is that Trump will be the president. And I think that, for me, talking to people like Darren and political professionals around, no one anticipated the size of this mandate, as you call it. The insurrection against the United States government is going potentially now, like a phoenix going back into was not only a right in terms of the violence, but a direct action intended to stop certification of a presidential election.
Understood. And we've talked a lot about it.
That's why I said that.
And we've talked a lot about it.
The campaign, clearly. I'm not trying to hype anything.
The campaign ran a lot of ads about it, talked a lot about it, and more, half the country now, Juan is going to say, that is not what I care about. I care about my economy. I care about immigration.
No, see, that's where we differ. I'm not sold on this idea that, it was the cost of eggs. I worry that it was, well, I'm not voting for this woman, or I'm not voting for this black woman.
No, that's not what we see in our data.
Well, here's the thing. Where do you see that? Because a moment ago, Darren was out here, and he said, in fact, not only did the bro strategy work, and the bro strategy largely worked along the lines of white men, but that the bro strategy also had some impact in terms of Latino and black men who came along and gave higher percentages.
All right, Carl, weigh in.
I just want to make one more point with Juan. I spoke to Jack Brewer this week, and here's what he said if Trump wins. He said he won because black men felt that Democrats and elites put immigrants before us. Your thoughts on that?
I just think that that's possible. I don't know that for a fact. I think there are tensions between racial groups, and people might feel that. Obviously, you can exploit those tensions, and you can exacerbate them to the point where you can politically benefit from it. Do I think that's the reason he won? No. I think the reason he won is you look at that bro strategy and the white male turnout and white grievance politics that he has used to great success in this country.
Carl, I think he's trailing him on trailing his prior 2020 numbers with whites.
Well, you know what? I think that the bros,
Hispanics and black males.
Yeah.
it's not sufficient to make up. It's not sufficient to have this kind of night.
I just think it is extremely odd to suggest that black men are somehow prejudiced because they vote for a white candidate who says, I want to make certain that everybody has an opportunity to succeed in our great economy. I want you to be more prosperous, and I will do things that will make it possible for you to make a better life. That is an appeal to their best instincts. He did not go out and say, vote for me because I'm not a woman. Don't go vote for me because I'm a white man. That would not have attracted those votes. They got attracted to him because they thought he was a strong, effective leader, and they thought he would do something about the issues they cared the most about, which is an economy in which they think they get the short stick, inflation, which has decimated their purchasing power, and illegal immigration, which has affected their communities deeply. And to suggest that somehow black men are racist because they supported a white man is just too far, Juan.
You're distorting my comments, but let me just say,
I followed your comment to its logical conclusion.
Carl, hold on. We're not saying most black men did not vote for Donald Trump. So I never said anything like that. That's just not true.
Oh, you suggested it's only
I'm saying to you, no, I'm saying to you that in terms of this bro strategy for white males, the whole notion of I'm bad, I talk about women in the most disparaging way. There's some men who just said, you know what, I get into, I want to be in on that. I want to be a badass guy, and I think they like Trump's image and the caricature.
I think they supported him in spite of that, not because of it.
Harold Ford Jr.
He offered to make their life better.
Harold Ford Jr.
Look, I tend to agree with Juan about January 6th. I'm surprised by the fact that the country got over that as quickly as we seemingly did, which speaks to the political comeback. I've said here earlier, I think that the fact that some of these issues around the economy and the border were not addressed more forthrightly, I think had an impact. That being said, we're going to have some analysis around this and around whether or not the driving up support amongst men, what was behind that, how did it work, did the gender gap with women, did black women, white women, Hispanic women, we still don't know those numbers. We'll have an opportunity to dig into some of those things, but I don't interpret what Juan is saying any more than that.
All right, more to talk about here.
There's a lot more coming up as election night moves on at 1:15 on the East Coast. We continue to get more vote in. We will be able to make some calls when that vote is in full. Our coverage continues next. Stay with us. Movement from the Mar-a-Lago Trump group, including former President Trump, who is in a very good position to be the next president this evening as well, is heading over to the Trump headquarters where there are a few thousand people who have gathered for this evening. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Obviously, when he shows up there, we will take you there live.
Well, those guys had two Make America Great hats on.
I saw someone with a really large one. Yeah.
As we look now at what we have Pennsylvania. Is this a call, ladies and gentlemen? We are now projecting that Donald J. Trump will win the state of Pennsylvania. Former President Donald J. Trump.
Nixon had at that time, hated though he was by the Democrats. This surmounts that. This is an extraordinary comeback.
Dan.
He campaigned so energetically, ruthlessly, fiercely, and with more joy than Kamala Harris. And it was so clear that Joe Biden was not going to be able to go the distance. If Joe Biden were still on the ticket tonight, who knows what tonight might have even looked like. That he has been able to accomplish this, it is nothing short of astonishing and amazing. And also, I think about Susie Wiles.
Let us not be critical of people for voting for President Trump. He did something we didn't do in this campaign. We had to reevaluate, reassess. Mr. Wonderful said it a little earlier that may give us an opportunity as a party to revamp, and perhaps we should think about that. But don't write off the people, the American people, for the decision they made.
アニバーサリーセレクション第1弾、各球団のスターが登場。クロスピエース。
Understand how some in the mainstream media are going to take this because it was so over the top one way that they thought it was done. There was a landslide prediction from a lot in the media that she was going to have the landslide. It looks like he's going to have the landslide tonight.
Yeah, it's truly remarkable. And, you know, the
Disappointment in 20.
after, say, January 6th.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at races now in states where Donald Trump very well may drag Republicans, and he's overperforming in a lot of places fellow Republicans.
You know, it really does. I think there are parallels to 1980, Mark Penn. When you look at Jimmy Carter, we had hostages in Iran. We have hostages in Gaza right now. Very high inflation and a malaise in many ways in the country that I think these people who have been called a lot of names have had enough of. What is your impression of what this means tonight?
Well, I think this means a lot to a lot of people. I think the working class are looking for a renewal of American jobs. I think people are looking for a border that is sane and an immigration system that works. I think a lot of people over in the Middle East are looking for Iran to pull back in the face of a president whom they fear. And, you know, look, I think it's going to be incumbent on the Democratic Party to understand that the people have spoken, and to dissemble and dismantle this lawfare system that they have built up here, which is going to raise a whole series of questions that are going to have to be answered now. But they cannot say that they are better than Donald Trump and recreate a system that does not recognize that he won and the people have spoken, and he is going to be the 47th president.
We haven't talked about foreign policy a lot, but imagine the Saudis, you know, making a normalization deal with Israel in the face of a new president here. Imagine
going there tomorrow night.
Imagine a Ukraine deal that Donald Trump talks about. Kevin O'Leary, what is the market going to do in the wake of this?
What's happened here is the system self-corrected. When you try and break the American model, it fixes itself. And I think people should give credit within the Democratic Party. Donald Trump saved them tonight too, because they're going to have to take a spatula to these policies and bring it back to the center over the next 4 years, and in a way reset. And we talked about this earlier, but he saved entrepreneurship. He saved the entire model of the S&P 500, because taxing 20% higher was a really bad idea, and it self-corrected. Capital, and this is why I'm getting on a plane tomorrow night. I intentionally didn't leave till tomorrow night so I could go to Geneva, go to Abu Dhabi, go to Riyadh, and say it's 21% corporate taxes, 100% not going to change. That is very important for people like me that bring capital back to this country. It fixed itself. It fixed itself. And I think that's why America works. It has worked for 200 years. When it gets too crazy, it fixes itself. And whether you love Trump or you hate him, Every Democrat owes him a thank you very much, Mr. President.
By the way, as the markets, the poly market and all these election markets were moving, Bitcoin went up exponentially.
Yes, I'm long Bitcoin.
Are you? So you're buying later.
You know, speaking of Bitcoin, I'm also struck by just calling Pennsylvania here, Dana. Trump embraced Elon Musk in an enormous way. A lot of stories were written that said that he was going to blow it in Pennsylvania, that the people who were working on his outreach teams didn't know what they were doing. He's going to
And he got a lot of criticism. Remember the $1 million giveaway for registered voters. But
for that.
Selena Zito, who's somebody that we follow and we've had on the show many times, and she knows that area very well. She said the people of that region love somebody who is a big thinker, who wants to create jobs, who is like looking into the future, and they can get behind that. And they love somebody who can really lead. And leadership takes courage. And you have to be willing to make decisions where you are going to be criticized. I think this is one of the problems that Kamala Harris has always had. She doesn't want to take a position on anything. We haven't even talked about how in California, the law to basically make shoplifting illegal again passed overwhelmingly. And Gascon, our friend down, the DA in Los Angeles, lost by 22 votes. I mean, this is in California, so it was everywhere. And 2 days before, 22 points, thank you. She wouldn't even take a position on that. 75% of the people in California wanted it gone. You can't take a position to be with them.
Not only that, you were part of Prop 47, which changed the law the other way when you were in office.
So not wanting to take a position and not being willing to be criticized is a problem if you want to be a leader at that level.
She had that affliction in 2020. Why didn't her own party say, you're not the right candidate? I mean, run a process.
Well, they did. They ran her out of town right before any votes were cast in 2019.
But the same
and then she's
affliction
out of there.
hit her here. The same problem she had in 2020 hit her in 2024.
She's the same person.
I mean, it's not all her fault. They put her in a race that she, well, we now know couldn't win.
But Karen, in fairness to Democrats, there's no doubt. I agree with you on unrealized capital gains. We shouldn't be taxing that. But we produce more wealth, more innovation, more oil, more cures, more therapeutics, so that both of the parties can work together to try and do that. And I salute President Trump tonight. What a great win. And I agree with you in this regard. My party's got to reimagine and reinvent itself going forward.
Listen, I wrote about this, the unity and
you did.
Past presidents and past losers and winners and what they said. This is a big speech, Britt, for former President Trump. As he gets ready to deliver this in front of a crowd, he's obviously taken the slings and arrows and everything that's been said, the fascism, all of the things we talked about tonight. But this moment is actually a moment to reach out.
It's an opportunity if he chooses to do that, but it's also 1:30 in the morning. So you got to wonder how many people are alive to hear him. But
they're there. And he's definitely.
A lot of people are still up.
The question is, how much is the national TV audience?
I bet they're still in.
You know, I think back at the moment in Iowa, at the beginning of this process, Brett, when we were in a town hall with him, bless you, Brett, and he, we asked him about all of this revenge stuff and that he was going to want retribution, and this is what everyone heard. And there were times when he had language that was that matched that, but he said that he wanted success to be his revenge, and that he wanted a successful America. And I would imagine that we're going to hear something along those lines tonight, but we'll see.
Brett, you wrote in your piece, you quoted one of those great old Republican presidents, H.W. Bush, who said that a campaign is a disagreement and an election is a decision. And decisions clear the way for harmony and peace. You know,
but listen, there are a lot of Thanksgiving tables that people are still going to have hard feelings after this election, more than any other election.
I have one of them.
And if you passing the Brussels sprouts is not going to be as easy Thanksgiving Day, but this is a chance to move forward. Brett, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that one thing that can happen here, and it happened to Biden, in my view. Biden was elected. We had every reason of the drift of his party, but he worked across the aisle with many senators, had Republican friends and so on. We thought that would probably be the kind of president he was. And then something happened. Trump went to Georgia and made a mess of that Senate, those two Senate races down there, and the Democrats ended up with control of the Senate, at which point old Biden started getting these historical sugar plums dancing in his head and went out for a very aggressive agenda.
Sure, there were articles about FDR.
Oh,
he was going to be the next FDR.
He was going to out-Obama Obama. Remember that?
Yep.
Well, and that, in my view, that was he would have been, if the Republicans had maintained control of the Senate, first thing that wouldn't have happened was all that wild spending that led to the inflation, or led to a big part of the inflation. And Biden and the country would have been better off because of it. There's always a danger in overreading a mandate. One wonders if Trump will be sober-minded about his.
I think that happened to Biden. Early on, remember, he said he's going to be returned to norms, and then the historians came in and said, no, you could be bigger than FDR. So he says, fine, okay, I'll spend all the money. Then they caused inflation, and now they end up with this result.
Well, he has said that this looks like new President Trump, if he gets to 270, which we expect he will, fairly shortly, yes, exactly, has a moment to bring about the unity that people expected after the last election. Of course, we would be kidding ourselves to think that there won't be a tremendous response to this, tremendous backlash in a lot of corners of the country.
So listen, he's going to get there because Alaska is going to be Republican, but we're not done as far as calling states. There could be even more states that go Trump's way. This could be a massive landslide just by what we're looking at in the polls. Fox News Decision Desk count now project, though, Vice President Harris will win Minnesota, and her running mate Tim Walz serves as the state's governor there. That takes it up to 267 to 226. But again, Donald J. Trump will be the 47th president of the United States. More Democracy 24 special coverage next.
If you have generalized myasthenia gravis, picture what life could look like with Vyvgart Hytrulo, a subcutaneous injection that takes about 30 to 90
Quarters in West Palm Beach. You see thousands of people waiting, and we are about to hear from the next president of the United States. He will be 45 and 47, and we're waiting for him to join the room. We'll take you there, obviously, as soon as that gets underway. In the meantime, Grady Trimble is in Michigan. Let's get a quick update just outside of Detroit. Hi, Grady.
Hey, Martha. Yeah, people were getting a little bit tired here, but then the call for Pennsylvania was like a jolt of electricity through this room at the Michigan GOP watch party, and the crowd started chanting USA. They started chanting Trump, 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 as it now appears he will be the 47th president of the United States. Now, in addition to Trump and the call for him in Pennsylvania, we're also excited about the possibility that Michigan could be the state that tips him over that magic 270 number. We're also following a very close Senate race here in Michigan, and they're feeling very confident about that as well. Republican candidate Mike Rogers looks like he could cruise to victory with the help of former President Trump. Democratic candidate Alyssa Slotkin, she went out to her crowd at her watch party at around 12:30 tonight and told them to go home and go to sleep, where here they extended this ballroom venue all through the night if they had to, and now it looks like the crowd is fired up as they await former President Trump taking the stage.
Okay, Grady, thank you. It is really important to point out how big the coattails could be tonight. Think about Bernie Moreno in Ohio, was thought dead in the water against Sherrod Brown. He wins. We have right now at this hour, as Grady mentioned, Mike Rogers in Michigan is up. Looks like he is getting closer. We haven't made a call there yet. Hovde in Wisconsin, leading right now. Sam Brown in Nevada is closing in on Jackie Rosen. Wow. We're talking about historic numbers here. If all of these dominoes fall, you're talking about a Senate that could be 54-46, 55-45. That wasn't in the cards. That wasn't on anybody's bingo card when you came into election night.
But these candidates have all fought really strong races, and they have all closed in a very strong way. And in fact, many of them were sort of pulling into +5, +6 in just over the last 3 weeks. So it's a fascinating part of this story. Hopefully we'll be able to call some more of those soon.
Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says with these coattails, you could see the House going Republican as well, and that would be a part of this story as well. Let's go back out to Trace Gallagher on the West Coast with his panel. Hey, Trace.
Brett, thank you. Martha, thank you as well. We've got our panel, Steve Hilton, Jody Armour, Kaylee McGee-White, and Jono Caldwell. You're talking to your panel, Brett and Martha, and we were talking to ours, and Kaylee McGee-White was struck by the whole concept that, again, Trump was undercounted. Kaylee.
This is the third consecutive polling miss in a presidential cycle for Donald Trump, and we really need to be asking ourselves, why do they keep getting it wrong? And at this point, it is a choice. Back in 2016, you could argue that you were blindsided. You didn't expect it. You cannot say that anymore. This was predictable from the very start. And I think the reason they keep getting it wrong is because they still don't understand the average Trump voter. They cannot wrap their heads around why so many people support him. And it's because for a long time, actually for the past decade or so, Democrats in power didn't think they needed to. And even worse, they didn't want to. They didn't want to have to stoop down to understand the concerns over immigration, over the economy. And guess what? The American people sent a very clear message tonight that you better start paying attention, and you better start paying attention soon.
We heard a lot of words, demographic. I don't know how many times we heard it, Steve Hilton, but Gianna, you talk about black voters, black male voters especially. We heard it again and again tonight, and you think it's worth talking about.
I think this is a historic night. Black men will now, those who voted for Trump will be counted as those who helped save America from further decline. I mean, Kamala Harris has tried her best to create these accents like, you better thank a union member, all of these things that she's done to try to appeal to this community, even going on Oprah Winfrey's talk show or whatever that was to say, oh, I'll pull out my gun and shoot someone that tries to come into my house. I mean, this is become nonsensical to the point that I don't know if we're looking at Medea runs for president or not. I mean, this is outstanding what has happened from the black male perspective, and I hope the Republican Party takes note.
Yeah, and you talk about young males and younger voters, Jody Armour. You're a law professor at the University of Southern California. You know what young people are geared into. Are you surprised when you see these voter analysis numbers that young voters came out heavy for Donald Trump?
Yeah, well, young voters can sniff out a fraud. They can sniff out somebody who's chameleon-like. She changes her position according to the prevailing winds. They didn't like that. Many across the country, young students said, for me, a red line also is mass atrocities, is collective punishment, is what I see going on in the Middle East, and I see us as complicit in. So they, were saying, I'm not just that enthusiastic. Yeah, I'm not going to get out.
I got 15 seconds for you, Steve.
I just think when I see this unfold, Trace, it is just a massive victory.
Oh, we got to jump back. Sorry, guys, back to you. We got Trump coming out.
Trace, thank you. The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
The former president's comeback will be complete with a win in Wisconsin, a state that he narrowly lost 4 years ago. He is now the second president in U.S. history to win non-consecutive terms. The first was Grover Cleveland in the late 1800s. Senator J.D. Vance will become the 50th vice president of the United States. Voters express deep frustration with the Biden administration, and former President Trump and the future President Trump overperformed in urban areas, particularly with men, proving that the strategy that they've doubled and tripled down on over the course of the last few months absolutely succeeded and brought him back to the White House.
47th president of the United States, former President Trump now defeats Vice President Kamala Harris, who entered this race just over 100 days ago. And for Democrats, they were projecting the possibility of running the table with battleground states. David Plouffe with the Democratic campaign of Harris campaign suggested that just yesterday. Now it is possible that Donald Trump runs the table with these states and builds on a big landslide electoral win. We don't know where the popular vote is going to finish out, but we do know that he will be going back to the White House, and with him, Brit Hume, will be a lot of changes because he will have been there once and will know what he wants to do.
He often accounts for the fact
all these people's faces. Think about the angst and the, all that this campaign has been through. And now there is the prospect of creating what you want to create in a second administration. Your thoughts, 30,000 feet of this win.
Indictments, 2 assassination attempts, an unlikely come-from-behind victory, and history is made tonight. This is a huge moment particularly because this is a tectonic, and that's due to former President, now soon to be current President Trump. And I just want to say this as we wait for him to come out. I remember having a conversation with Ivanka Trump in 2016 about his remarks. And before he went out to give those remarks, he had speech A and speech B. Speech A was a more boisterous Trumpian speech. Speech B was a speech full of unity. And he looked up, Ivanka said, saw the faces of crying Hillary voters. He ripped up the boisterous speech and said he wanted to heal the nation. And the first words he said were an appreciation for Hillary Clinton, for her service to our country. And then he said, now it is time for America to bind the wounds of division. And he said, we are a party of all races, creeds, and religions. That is more true tonight than it was 8 years ago. And I fully expect President Trump right now is maybe ripping up that more boisterous speech and preparing to unite the country.
It's an amazing message.
I hope Kaylee's right. I hope you're right. And we're gonna get a chance to see here in a minute. Trey Gowdy said something on your show the other day about how one of the things that you hope also is they're a little more prepared this time. They've got a great transition team, and they're going to need it. And I hope that there are a lot of people who want to go in and be helpful.
Trey?
Yeah, I think his transition team has done a wonderful job vetting potential candidates. And to Kaylee's point, I think a liberated Donald Trump, he's never going to be on the ballot again. This is his last term. I think, Harold, he will surprise his detractors. I think he will be not anything like what his detractors have described him as being now that he is liberated. If I'm wrong, you can hold me to that. But I think he will, a liberated Donald Trump is going to shock his detractor.
He has said that the assassination attempts had an impact on him. You know, we saw him in many ways return to the very rough and tumble style that we've seen in Donald Trump towards the end of this. But now he will take the stage tonight as the next president of the United States, and he will not be able to run again. Yeah. And I think that is another liberating factor potentially for President Trump. Katie.
We'll never underestimate the power of unfinished business. This is a president who has caught lightning in a bottle twice, and the second time around, he now has a MAGA mandate. He will have a Senate that he can use to push through his cabinet appointees.
Every right to celebrate. We'll give a speech with that tone tonight that in many ways could help him do all the things that he campaigned on in this campaign.
What does this mean for the never-Trumpers, who are Republicans, and the Lincoln Project people, and Bill Kristol, and people like that who seem to abandon everything they ever previously believed in order to oppose Donald Trump?
Kellyanne?
We'll get to the never-Trumpers soon enough and the hundreds of millions of dollars wasted on them. Look, Donald Trump won this on policy and personality. I don't want to be remiss here. He is talking about energy independence, manufacturing, an economy where everybody is working, no new foreign wars, getting out of the entanglements we currently have, respecting and resourcing law enforcement, border patrol, military. And by the way, friends, we don't get those policies without that personality. What did we hear during the Republican primaries? I want Donald Trump's policies without his personality. Good luck with that. You don't get this strength and this resolve and this toughness. You don't get those policies without that. But I want to say this, it's on this phone that Huma Abedin, they're filing out, and he's expanding his folks, and they're all excited for him. Look, I think that Kamala Harris is a sign of the times, but I think that Trump's a metaphor for the country. And when he says, we don't surrender, fight, 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 we get back up, I just think I think that's who it is. The other thing I just want to say, maybe it's as a Catholic, maybe it's just as a Trump supporter, maybe it's just as a flawed human being. We all get second chances in this life. Rarely do we get a second chance as big as this one. And I have got to believe the man that I know and that Kaylee worked with is going to work with a certain alacrity and energy to get things done very quickly. What he can do through executive order, what he could do with the Congress, bringing in the governors. Nobody gets a second chance this big in their lives and just puts it on the shelf like it's a trophy or a gold star. He's going to use that as a platform for good and undo some of these bad policies, and I think do even better. You know, these celebrities, these athletes, he's got job creators and innovators. He's got Elon Musk and Dana. He's got people who make stuff, who people say, wow, there's an American success story, and he's going to bring them aboard.
So Vice President Harris has now encountered what is known as the Van Buren curse. It's the failure of the vice president to get to the presidency. Only two have done it, and that is Mark Van Buren in 1836 and George H.W. Bush in 1988. You know, the question is, what the Republican Party looks like now. And Kayleigh, it's a multiracial party, to your point. It's working class, and maybe it's the future. I mean, it's Elon Musk. It is Joe Rogan and podcasts. It is, you know, there's an opportunity here on both parties to realign and change.
There are going to be a lot of conversations that go on to that end. Who is the next standard bearer for president? Is it J.D. Vance? Is he the one who picks up the torch after a 4-year legacy-defining term with the success that Kellyanne's describing? Is it J.D. Vance that picks it up? There's going to be a conversation about ground game. I mean, Kamala Harris over the weekend, they were saying they were knocking 1,000 doors a minute, and I have no reason to doubt that. It was an extraordinary ground game, but do ground games matter as much as podcasts? As much as real, authentic, viral moments like President Trump on the garbage truck, or President Trump at McDonald's, these viral moments that really captured the attention of the nation. And what does the Republican Party look like going forward? It's a broad coalition. It's an exciting coalition, and I think if President Trump manifests that working man agenda, no tax on tips, no limit on credit card interest rate, that's a working man's economic agenda. And if he makes that happen in 4 years, this party may look like this for quite some time.
I'm struck when you're talking about the authenticity part of this, because when I think about him with the French fries at McDonald's and standing up with blood on his face, fight, fight, fight. You can't fabricate. No, consultant can create those moments, Trey. Those are organic and they are authentic. And I think that is something that Kamala Harris fell really far short on in terms of the authenticity measure.
Yeah, if you had told me that a billionaire from New York would be able to connect with middle America, I would have questioned that. To my friend, the gentleman from Tennessee, autopsies are painful, especially when the patient's still alive. I wonder what the Democrat Party is going to go through in the next weeks and months, because this was a loss that I don't think anyone saw coming, not to this magnitude. So what does the autopsy look like?
スーモを使うのは家を借りるとき、買うとき。借りるは間違いないはず。
Did you lose, and how did you lose this sound?
The easiest way to do it for them would be to simply say, if Joe Biden hadn't clung to the job, clung to the nomination, and hidden his condition with a lot of help, they could have had an open nominating process and gotten a more attractive nominee who would have been freer to walk away from Biden policies and would have had a better shot. I mean, I think that's the easiest, simplest solution. But I'm not sure that's where they'll go. But that makes sense.
I don't think you can pass over an African-American female, which is a very loyal constituency for the Democrat Party. I don't see how they could have passed over.
But if he left the office and she'd run, she would have been put through a different process and would have had competition, and the whole thing would have been different.
But I mean, Harold, you have a Democratic Party that's pretty old. I mean, you have Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden.
You got Andy Beshear, you got Josh Shapiro, you got Gretchen Whitmer.
That's a different kind of Democrat, and that is not the progressive Democrat that wins in a primary. So is it going to be a change in your party?
Well, we nominated a Bill Clinton and a Barack Obama who were not from the party. So I think we'll do that. Look, tonight, what happened this evening and what's happened over the last year has been described. There were those on this panel who didn't believe that this resurrection could have occurred. So if this can happen, things are possible in politics if you're willing to change and willing to have courage and determination. And whatever Democrats or anybody want to say about this guy who's been elected our president, he personifies that courage and determination and persistence. So I think, Trey, you were asking a serious question, and Britt gave a very serious answer. I think that's going to be part of the answer. And we've got to look long and hard about whether or not the way we campaign sometimes with identity politics, then at the end, is that the right way to do it? But before you get there, you got to get a purpose and a message. And we'll get there. And we've got a long history of figuring these things out as a nation, as a party, and we'll figure it out this time.
So the carnage speech got a lot of attention at the inauguration. Do we think that
Oh, yeah.
this speech,
I was going way back.
we're actually told that the teleprompters have been removed from the stage, so we could be in for a long haul here. We don't know. But what do you think? You know, he's coming, but there may not be teleprompters.
I'm saying he goes off the teleprompter anyway, but he, you know, the other night at the Al Smith dinner, he was upset that there were teleprompters, you know, because he doesn't want to use them. So.
Right. So, Dana, what does this speech look like?
This one right now?
Yeah.
I think look, I don't know. He's one of the most unpredictable people, too. So I think that's why we're all here, and I'm wide awake, and I've been awake for almost 24 hours now. And I am curious to see. I think I wasn't just thinking about this speech. I'm thinking about the inauguration speech, which would be 8 years since Carnage speech. He has a wide range of the types of speeches that he can give. If you think even within a speech, there's range. If you think about the RNC convention, it started off with like, oh, wow, yeah. And then after a while, it was like, wow, he's still talking. It was like so long, and it kind of got off script, and people thought, oh, he kind of lost opportunity. But he didn't. I think if you look at these people who would take off work, drive somewhere in the middle of the night to go and get in line, to wait for hours, to then stay at a rally for hours, and part of the things he has done as well is created this camaraderie amongst people so that you could go to a place where you're not afraid to wear your red MAGA hat, and you could say, I'm not the crazy one. I'm not the only one who thinks the way that I do. I can actually have friends, and that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be outreach to the other side. I believe in love thy neighbor. I love all of that. But he has created something special here, so I kind of want him to take a victory lap tonight. I don't think this is necessarily the moment for unity, especially when she won't even concede and give him the night to celebrate.
Yeah. Kellyanne, you were looking at the popular vote. He's still up, and could finish up.
And part of that is because he did run up the totals in places I was looking at, even the rural counties in Pennsylvania. He was going to win them by significant double digits, but he won them that much more. I think running up the totals in Florida, which was a swing state not that long ago, over 1.1 million votes or so. Haley, right, your home state. And this is, look, I think that when the Democrats take a look at this candidacy, it's not going to be that she had too much time, not enough time. She's just a flawed candidate. She doesn't speak well. She doesn't work hard. I'm not being mean or partisan. I don't know why the country would have rewarded this candidate with the big job when she couldn't make the case what she does as vice president that affects our lives in a positive way. She was given that opportunity. I personally would like to thank the women of The View tonight for asking this question, for having her on. Oprah, we see you, and so on and so forth. People who thought they were doing her a favor because they made her something she's not. It's the opposite for Trump. They make him something he's not. Take that one word, take that one line, take that cherry pick this, that, the other. You never get the essence. I go back, does everybody remember 5 years ago, so Laurel and Yanny, or what color dress? You hear Laurel, I hear Yanny. You see the blue dress, I see yellow dress. We were all looking at the same thing. That's the way Donald Trump is in this country. There are people who look exactly the same person, and they see two different vistas. I think it's time that we try to see one. Look, I don't know who said it earlier. I'm a little worried about the reaction of the Democrats and the common people here. I'm very worried. I think that there are a lot of unhinged people across the political spectrum, and we gave very little quarter to how many anti-Kamala voters are out there. I don't want to hear the words racism and sexism. It's eyesight and hearing. We were listening and watching her. And I'm very worried that we've not talked a lot about how violent people may be and angry because she lost. Right. I'm afraid of that.
Right. I mean, I can just imagine thinking about The View, and a week or so ago, they were saying, you know, what is wrong with someone who would vote for him?
Michelle Obama.
And Joe Scarborough saying, you know, we weren't raised like this. Who raised these people? So I can only imagine what tomorrow is going to look like.
You know, I will say when we talk about The View, you know, what comes to mind is we mentioned the carnage speech that President Trump gave at his inauguration. And my mind automatically went to the unity speech that Biden gave, and he mentioned unity a half dozen times. But when you think about what we got over 4 years, there was the garbage comment that didn't come in isolation. There were all kinds of comments. Neanderthal was one of the first words he used to describe those who opposed his COVID edicts. The Mark Cuban comment, he was an official surrogate of the Kamala campaign. And for, you know, as mean as some of President Donald Trump's tweets have been and people have problems with it, one thing I've challenged Democrats to find is one example of him disparaging the country, half of the country, and that's something he has not done. And so I expect you'll hear a unifying tone, and I expect you're going to see a very successful presidency, and one untethered maybe from some of the things that were holding him back. What comes to mind is an Oval Office meeting that we had where Dr. Fauci was urging him not to open the country. And I watched President Trump fight vociferously, saying people are losing their jobs. We must open the country. He wanted to do it sooner than he did. I think a Donald Trump who goes with his instincts is going to be a Trump that ultimately leads a very successful country in second term.
You know, Martha, Joe Biden mentioned the word unity more in his inaugural address than any president, I think, except one. If he's serious about that, he'll pardon Donald Trump. He'll also pardon his son. And then he'll put pressure on Georgia and New York to end this lawfare. If there is any silver lining tonight, it is that lawfare actually helps the person that you are trying to go after. We need a justice system. The lady needs to wear a blindfold for a reason. We got to stop this prosecution of our political enemies.
I mean, literally, his polls
went up. Will be the Attorney General.
Absolutely.
We need a really solid Attorney General.
John Ratcliffe.
Can do it.
Sorry, John. John, I apologize. Sorry.
There will be a lot of talk about cabinet members, Treasury Secretary, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense. You've got Tom Cotton, Mike Pompeo. You have.
Well, you also have a Republican bench. And sometimes, like you were saying, that the Democratic Party is quite old right now. There's not a great bench, although there are some, and especially, but when you take governors out of states, then you leave a hole, and then they have to build up that bench back up. But the Republican bench is pretty strong right now.
There you see Doug Burgum and Vivek Ramaswamy, Steve Wynn, his lovely wife Andrea. So people are there waiting for the former president. Britt would like to know where he is.
He's watching us.
Can we say tonight, though, Harold, that the melting pot still works? That Hispanics, Black Americans, working class Americans, standing up, asking what their government is going to do, asking their government to see them and their concerns, that it works, that this is American democracy in our republic working.
The process works. I think as we get a final account of the numbers and the coalition that President Trump won with this time, I think it'll be one that will be for the history books. President Bush, I think, got 40+% of the Hispanic vote. George Bush, W. Bush, and it looks like at least the preliminary numbers suggest that. But as much as we talk about the unconventional aspect of this was conventional also. People believed him. He resonated with voters. He resonated with communities, rural communities, urban communities, suburban communities across the country. And I congratulate him tonight. I didn't want him to win, but I congratulate him on his victory and wish him the best for my country. And I can only hope that the concerns that are articulated by my dear friend Kellyanne, that they're not realized. I hope that my party and my friends, and for that matter, Republicans alike, that we're all able, once we get past the moment here, the 24 hours of excitement and joy and celebration, to understand that what we're really celebrating is the greatest experiment to have ever come to existence. It'll celebrate 250 years of its own existence in 2026. So those are my thoughts, brother.
I'm struck by the issue of abortion, because it was talked about so much, and it was presented as if, you're a woman and you are not going to support her, then you hate all women. They said that husbands, were hateful towards their wives and the women in their lives if they didn't support this candidate. And I think it just goes to show that kind of, manipulating, it doesn't win.
And narrow casting us based on our gender. I think Kamala Harris was talking to us from the waist down, and I think Donald Trump was talking to us from the waist up as well. That's where my eyes, my ears, my heart, my brain, and my big mouth are. So, you got to talk to the woman in full. It's as if she doesn't know anything about the economy, or she doesn't care about what's going on in Ukraine or Israel or with Iran, or can't do the math on her grocery bill. It's an insult. Of course people care, but we care about many things. Just as we are not monolithic in life, we're not monolithic thinkers, politically. But you know, Martha, something else happened. They put these ballot initiatives on to try to gin up turnout for the Democrat. And they did that, and it kind of backfired. Look at this popular vote. And it backfired. The other thing is, if you've got 10 abortion ballot initiatives, you can vote your conscience on abortion, and you can vote separately or similarly for president. The presidential race was not a proxy for your position on abortion. By the way, somebody sent me the statistics. Over $500 million spent on ads about abortion. $500 million in this country out of the $16 billion Brett is talking about. $37 million for pro-lifers. The rest was the pro-choicers. I mean, it's just insane amount of money.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about markets tonight and the betting markets. Trey, at this point, it's at about 66% that Republicans hold on to the House as they're ticking down the possibilities, and they look at these coattails with not only the popular vote, but what could be and is shaping up to be an electoral college landslide. Should he control the White House, the Senate, and the House, like he did at the beginning in 2016, the possibilities open to a lot of things.
Yeah, I was there in 2016, and we had everything but an agenda. That mistake will not be made. Then quit using lawfare to divide the country. Quit using the justice system to try to win political races.
We are still following these Senate races, and as we wait for the former president, by the way, there's Nigel Farage there talking in the crowd there. Britt, this is remarkable in that some of these races were not even suspected to be close, expected to be close. Mike Rogers, he was a long shot at one point against Alyssa Slotkin.
Good candidate.
In Michigan, good candidate.
Strong candidate.
Former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee.
Right.
But Sam Brown was left essentially, he was not going to win.
He was not on anybody's list. Likely switching.
Not getting much money or attention.
No, but I think he's a competent candidate. Once again, we have.
By the way, there's Sam Brown right there, 48.1 to 47.2, 80% in over Jackie Rosen.
How much renews our understanding that candidate quality matters.
Yep.
In this cycle, Republicans in the Senate races in particular fielded some pretty darn good candidates that gave them a shot in states where Republicans often face an uphill battle. And the fact that, it looks like it won't be just a squeaker, there might be a little margin there for Republicans, and the Senate is testament to that.
Let's see where Wisconsin is, guys. Can we put up Havdi in Wisconsin?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President-elect Donald J. Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, and the Trump family, accompanied by Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, Second Lady Usha Vance, along with friends and campaign staff.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And, winning the popular vote was very nice, I will tell you. It's a great feeling of love. We have a great feeling of love in this very large room with unbelievable people standing by my side. These people have been incredible. They've made the journey with me, and we're going to make you very happy. We're going to make you very proud of your vote. I hope that you're going to be looking back someday and say that was one of the truly important moments of my life when I voted for this group of people beyond the president, this group of great people. America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate. We have taken back control of the Senate. Wow, that's good. And the Senate races in Montana, Nevada, Texas, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, were all won by the MAGA movement. They helped so much. And in those cases, every one of them, we worked with the senators. They were tough races, and I mean, the number of victories in the Senate was absolutely incredible. And we did tele-rallies. We did tele-rallies with each one of them. And sometimes we did 2 or 3 and it was amazing to look at all of those victories. Nobody expected that, nobody. So I just...
This is what happens when the machine comes after you. What you've seen over the last several years, this is what it looks like. Couldn't stop him. He keeps going forward. He doesn't quit. He's the most resilient, hard-working man I've ever met in my life. His family are incredible people. This is karma, ladies and gentlemen. He deserves this. They deserve it as a family. I want to thank some people real quick. I want to thank the Nelk Boys, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, Bustin' with the Boys, and last but not least, the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan. And thank you, America. Thank you. Have a good night.
That is a piece of work. No, he's really an amazing guy. But most of all, I want to thank the millions of hardworking Americans across the nation who have always been the heart and soul of this really great movement. We've been through so much together, and today you showed up in record numbers to deliver a victory like really, probably like no other. This was something special, and we're going to